What's up everyone, I'm Gneissish, and this is the third video in a series of electrical videos aimed at players new to electricity or trying to hone their skills. Now, if you haven't watched the first video on root power sources and the second video on batteries, I suggest you do that before you watch this one. Otherwise, where we're gonna start here is, we're talking power management. You have your base, you've got this power source, whether it be wind, solar, or both, and you've got it going to a battery in some fashion, and now the battery's in your base, obviously. What do you do with it? How do you distribute that power to where you need it to go? And this is the core idea of this video. So before we jump into the actual power management, we're gonna talk about this really quick, because this is, good power management always starts here. And so what I've done here is I have a wind turbine and I've got 5 solar panels, that's the green lines there. And then I've got my 5 root combiners, because remember, the number of root combiners you need is the amount of power inputs you have minus 1. So we have 6 power inputs, so we have 5 root combiners. I went ahead and set them up in this tree format. Someone made a comment on one of my other videos that maybe this would be easier to understand, and I think that was a very good point. And so I set this up this way just so that you can better understand how it is these are coming together. But basically, the green lines all run to available inputs on the bottom of these. And then the yellow lines are connecting the root combiners together so that they all end up in one. Because the goal here is a single output of power that you can do stuff with. So that's what I've done there. Now, instead of, I'm sure some of you have seen that you can run stuff straight to your battery. And so I could have skipped this branch right here, and I could have just run this output here, 205 right now anyway, straight to this battery. And yeah, that would have charged it. But if you saw the previous video on batteries, you know that batteries have an 80% charging efficiency, which means the large battery, if fully loaded, so active usage 100, requires 125 volts minimum to keep it charged. And so I don't need 205 volts to keep this charged. I need like 125, 130, 140, whatever you want, but at least 125. And you need that an average amount of the time. So like your power input to that, if you were to run these straight to it, like let's say it was just the wind turbine running to this, wind turbines can vary. And so their output can be as high as 150. Right now it's at 105. They vary, rust wind varies. And so, you have to think about that as long as the output of that wind turbine by itself is 125 average or more, then fine. If not, you're gonna have to supplement it. And so what I've done here is I've run the power out of this root combiner to a branch. And the reason for that is I can set the branch out to whatever I want. And so I've run the branch out to this battery, and I've said, okay, I'm gonna set it to 140. Let's say I set it to 130. Great, so that's still, it's taking this this amount of electricity that is very highly likely to always be over 125 or over 130, even over 140 or 60. The point is that I have a constant stream of 130 because the branch prioritizes the branch out over the power out. So whatever it receives, it's going to first send out the branch out, whatever you set that to, minimum 2, maximum, whatever. And the power out is what's left. And so I've just hooked this counter up to show you that as the power is fluctuating, it's at 78 right now. That's the extra power that I have that I didn't send off the branch out. And so this is the best way if you're going to hook up batteries and you're going to have a bunch of power. Instead of just sending all that power and wasting it, send what you want out the branch to your battery, and then the rest will fluctuate, but this will not. And so you'll have this sort of conditioned power perfect for your battery, and you'll have whatever you have over here to play with. So this 80 can be, this would be a great way to set up a medium battery, because the minimum for a medium battery for charging if it's fully used is 63 volts. So it probably isn't enough to even do that. So you can do other stuff, and that's the point. And so this battery's output here is being sent over to this branch over here. We'll talk about that. But that's the gist of the power setup here. We've got six power sources, 5 root combiners, everything into one, goes to a branch out goes to the battery, power out is extra stuff. And so you can set that charging to whatever you need it to be, and you won't have to worry about your battery. Okay, so the next topic we're going to talk about before we actually do some examples of branching out is I'm going to use the same descriptor that I did in one of my other videos because I thought it worked really well. And we're going to think of the branch as a tree. And so you know, if you think about the nomenclature of Rust electricity, you have root power sources, you know, you have a branch switch, right? So the branch switch branches off. That's the whole point. So if you think about the input, this is a test generator for admin. Most servers, you can't get this as a player. This is just sending out 100 volts, exactly what that battery would. So let's just say you have a battery hooked into this input here. The power in and power out is like the trunk of a tree. So that's the red path you can take there. So the power in, the power out is like the trunk of a tree. The way the branch works is that it takes the power in, it sends out whatever you say out the branch. The minimum setting is 2. So each branch will use 3 volts, 1 for itself, 1 and 2 for the branch out, no matter what. And so everything that's left, in this case 97, goes to the next branch. And so then it's whatever's left out of that one goes off to the next branch. And by the time you get to the top, and we'll hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we've used 15 volts going up this path. But the important thing here to note is how, like, why this is so powerful. So if you think of these as the trunk of a tree, the red path here, power in to power out is the trunk of the tree. The branch, just like a tree, is something that branches out from the main trunk, but you get to tell it how much you want. So let's say in this first one, maybe we want that 2, but maybe it's, you know, just a single light or something. In this second one, let's say it's a turret. So we need 10 volts to power a turret. So if I send 10 volts out this branch, it removes that voltage from the trunk of the tree, and you'll notice that now we're at 77. That's how much we have left coming out this last branch. And so let's say this next one is a SAM site. We could set that to 25. Of course, we're ignoring the switch, but the SAM site itself is 25. So we've used now 25 off of this branch, you know, this part of the tree branching out this way, this branching out that way. Now we have 54 left. So this is an excellent way. You know, the most powerful way to manage your power in Rust is to use branches. Now, you don't have to set them up vertically like this. I did this just, you know, so it looks like a tree, I guess. But you just trunk them together. You daisy chain them together, and you branch off power as you need it. So let's say, I don't know, I've got a farm and it needs 38 volts going off to the farm for stuff. There you go. Now you've partitioned off out of the trunk 38 volts. Everything else is still what it needs, and we have 18 volts left at the end there. And so that's really the trick right there, is that you just want to use branch switches, daisy chain together. And you know, it gets obviously much more complicated than this depending on the kind of circuit you're attaching after this point going this way, and I'll show you that over there. But that's it. Trunk of the tree, branch out what you need. That's the best way to start. So now I'm just going to do a quick example here. So like this branch here is coming out of that battery right there. So that's the battery that we have set up on all that stuff over there. And I've got 100 volts coming in to this branch, and I'm going to start with, you know, this is how you would start in your base, is that you'd have the battery and you start with one branch always. And so let's say I want to hook up a turret. So let's say I have a turret, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to hook this turret up somewhere. Let's put it right here. And I'm going to need a switch for that turret because you have to be able to turn it on and off. So I'm going to throw a switch on the wall. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to branch off. This is the, you know, here to here is the trunk of the tree. I'm going to branch off whatever I need for this and the switch. So the switch requires 1. The turret requires 10 if you're not using any of the outputs over there, max 11. And I'm going to go ahead and just run that. So if I were to hook that into my switch, and then I were to run the switch out and run that over to our turret, and all I have to do is set this branch to whatever I need. So it's 11, 1 for the switch, 1 for the turret, and there you go. The turret will turn on, and we've got, where is it? Right there. 10 arriving, perfect, because we have 11 arriving here. This uses 1, 10 coming out of there, perfect. And so let's say, you know, that's step 1. You got your turret set up, and you're like, cool. And now you're like, well, I'm going to hook up some lights. I'm going to do, you know, I usually just do 3 as an example. And so you get in your base and you start hooking up putting your lights up. And what you're going to do is the same thing that we did over here. This branch here is the first branch down there. I'm going to set up a new branch next to it like this. And so this time I'm going to run it sideways. This is how you'd actually do it to save space. And I'm going to daisy chain the second branch off of the first. So it's always going to be power out to power in. That's the trunk of the tree. And now I've got this new branch out available. And this is the trunk of the tree to continue on later. So I could say, okay, well, I'm going to set up a some lights, and I'll just do that in blue, I guess. So I'll run this over to here, jumper these into these lights, like so. Daisy chain all the lights together, and then so I've got, they each take 2 volts each, so 2, 4, 6, and then 7 for the switch, and we'll hook this up to the branch out there. So we have 7 we need. So we're going to set this branch to 7 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if I turn it on, there you go. And you can test this to make sure that you did this right by just subtracting 1 out of the branch out and saying, well, if I make it 6, I lost a light, so I'm a volt short. And so you can if you're unsure. And there you go. So we took 11 off for this and this switch. We took 7 off for this and that. So the trunk of the tree has continued, and now we have 80 volts left. And so let's say I want to set up a really simple raid alarm. What I could do is I could, I'll set this up here. We'll just throw this on the floor down here. And let's say I wanted to set up a real simple raid alarm. I could just put another branch down like so and continue the trunk of the tree. Made that a little close. And daisy chain it there, so power out here to the power in there. So now we have a new branch available. I'm just gonna fix this. You don't have to care about wiring. I try to be as neat as possible in case I have to fix stuff later. So there we go. So we've got so for this, we're gonna have to well, what do we need here? We need 1 volt to power this and 1 volt to pass through to this. So we just need 2, which is the minimum of the branch. the branch that is the minimum. So the branch 2 is exactly what we need. So let's say I'll do it in, I guess, green this time. So if I run this out to the input on our HVHF sensor, and then I run the output of the HVHF sensor down to the back of the thing here. So now it's going off because I'm here. So if I vanish with my admin mod, there it goes. It doesn't see me. If I reappear, there it goes. And that's it. So you notice I didn't put a switch on. If you wanted to add a switch to turn this off for some reason, you would just set this to 3 because you'd have to put the switch in the middle. So that's basically it. So as you add things to your base, you just keep going. And so one thing I always like to show is the turret upgrade. So let's say you start with 1, but you've already set this up. You've already got this 11 going out here, and it's running to the switch, and it's running to here. But what if, you're moving up in the world, and you have 2 more turrets, but you want to add them to the same switch, and you don't want to change anything? You can very easily do that. You just unhook the line from the switch here. In this case, I would add a splitter. The output of that splitter is going to run to each turret, like so. Just pop these over quickly, like that, and 1 more. There we go. So we have each one of those running to one of those turrets, and then I'm just going to run this over to the output of the switch, just like this. And now just add it up, 10, 20, 30, 31, 32 volts necessary. So you just set this to 32 now instead of 11. And there you go. Now you have 3 turrets. And so by doing it this way, that's the other reason why this is so powerful, is that you can make adjustments to each branch out, right? So we have the turret branch out, we've got the light branch out, we've got the raid alarm branch out, and you can just keep going until you literally run out of volts. So the next time you were going to do something, you would just once again power out to power in, and now you have some branch ability, and you still have 53 left over, and that just keeps going until you run out of juice. So that's really it. It's the trunk of a tree. Each branch out's what you need, and that's how you manage power in a Rust base. This is the best thing to do. Definitely keep this in a room that has the same level of security as your TC room. Obviously, you don't have to put the switches in there if you don't want. You could put your light switches in a more convenient spot, but the point is that you need to protect all this, because especially this stuff, because this is what's charging your battery. So really, once you get going, if you're in big group bases, the larger ones, create a really well defended electrical room to put all this in, so that people can't just blow all this stuff up and ruin all your turrets and things like that. And the other point here to make is that, let's say you have this going and someone raids the base and they blow up your lights. Your lights turn off. These don't turn off. They're independent. So as long as these branches are in a secure room, things that happen outside, they blow, you know, something happens to one of these turrets, the other two are still going because the way they're hooked up. They blow up this turret's still going. So using this method, not only does it protect the things you set up, but it maximizes the power that you're going to use. So, all right, that is pretty much it for that. The last thing I'm going to do is just show you a sort of mock setup. This is literally everything we just did over there, with a few added things. I just want to show you, I'll kind of just walk you through this simply. But what I did was I set up, 9 solar panels up here on the roof, and I just ran all the lines to this central point here and dropped them in, and I ran each one to an input on these first 4, and then half of this root combiner over here. And then the yellow outputs were, you know, combining the combiners to the combiners to a single output right here, which then runs to this branch right here. And this is the same thing that we did over here, only this time I put them in a row this time, just, you know, to fit better into an electrical room. And then I ran that output of that last one there to the input on this branch right here, and I set this to what I wanted. So I'd say 160. I could set this to 140. Doesn't matter, 125 or more. And that's how much I got left over. I got 39 volts to play with still coming out of that power source up there. So you can see, you know, I actually do this in my base. I put these up. And then I just started, I ran the branch out here to the battery, so it's getting what it needs. And then the power out of that battery is running to this first branch. And so this, you know, this branch here would be this first branch here, or this first branch down here. It's the first branch in your tree. And then it starts, you know, the trunk continues on with the red. And so this first one was lights. So I set up 1, 2, 3 lights and a switch. So that one's set to 7, 2, 4, 6, and then 1 for the switch, 7. This one here, I set up 32. So there's 3 turrets over here. And I just ran that into a switch and ran that switch, the yellow line, to this splitter. And the splitter out sends 10 volts to each of these. And there you go. So now you have the three turrets. This next one over here, this blue line, I sent that over to a SAM site. And so that one, SAMs require 25, and I did an extra 126 to include the switch. Turn that on. There you go. We're green. These are all separate circuits, you know, and they're all, you know, maybe with the exception of the light switch, you'd want them in some secure room in your base somewhere. And then the final one I did is actually I went ahead and hooked up this little cluster right here. This is a trap-based circuit. I've talked about the circuit in another video. I'll put the link in the video there. But I included the trap-based circuit with the reset button right there. And if I wanted to use that trap, you know, and I do this in my base, I set these up in case people door raid me, they go through a trap base first. And so if I were to turn that on, it arms the trap base and it's ready to go, and the laser just turned on with it. And so if I pass that laser, you can hide these with furnaces. If I pass that laser, trap base goes off. This would be the kill door. This would lock you in. And I can reset that trap base from in here or turn it off completely. And then it shuts all the doors, and then they just work like normal doors. And so the point is not the things that I put in here. The point is, this is how I manage the power. I brought it in and I branched it off to these, 4 items: lights, turrets, a SAM site, a trap base. And I still have, if you look at your power out of your last one, I still have 25 volts, and it isn't a ton. I put some heavy hitters on here, you know, 3 turrets and a SAM site. That's a lot. That's more than half. But the point is that I could keep going up to another 25 volts until I run out of juice. And I've got this battery charged on an array that has a partitioned amount going off instead of going straight to the battery, which gives me actually 39 extra volts currently. So I could hook that up to a small battery, or I could run some other stuff with it, whatever you want. But the point here is that instead of just, you know, you can't daisy chain everything. You don't want to daisy chain everything. You want to bring your power in intelligently and break it up and send it to where it needs to go. You know, I know a lot of this is probably, especially if you're new, might seem a little overwhelming, but I promise it gets easier, especially if you think this way, trunk of the tree, branching off. You know, if you can pull this off and where you get extra, like look, now I'm at 117 extra from my 130, right? Or if you're not sure about this, you can just run it straight to your battery and just waste that electricity until you get more comfortable doing this. So that folks, is about all I've got. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them below. You can get me on my Discord. See you later.